night, 2, 3, 4 a.m., I guess. And this object appeared over a period of weeks, and I guess months off and on, and was videotaped a number of times by someone living in a high-rise building of some kind, apartments, condominiums, not sure what, maybe even a hotel. But the video of this craft was so eerie, obviously a machine, obviously under intelligent control, even though it was pretty much parked where it was. What I saw just had me where I couldn't stop watching it. It was haunting. It was eerie. It was stunning. And it was real. And it is real. Now, it didn't just show up once. It apparently showed up a number of times over a period of years. But we're going to find out the whole story now with a very special friend of mine for a long, long time. A man who is a pillar in the UFO research community, Dr. Roger Leir, who has done more than his share to help bring the truth from the shadows out into the light. And we're very honored to have Roger back. I'm especially grateful to spend some time with this man who has been, again, a friend for a long time. Roger, welcome back to the program.
Well, thank you, Jeff. It's good to be with you once again.
Yeah. This is a big story, and what's really amazing about it is the clarity of the images, and doubly that, the fact you were there. Now, I don't know how that works, but you're going to have to tell us. You were there for 3 years, I understand.
Yeah, 3 years in a row, 2007 to 2009. And in going to Turkey the first time, I saw what I figured was my share of UFOs. So
yeah.
I had no complaints about what I saw in Istanbul and the surrounding area. Then the second year, the same thing happened, and the conference there was fairly close to the Istanbul airport to make matters even more confusing. But they had...
I remember the conference. Yeah, I remember. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they had major television trucks from all the major television stations in Turkey. They were all lined up, and they were all taking pictures of this stream of UFOs. Went by, constantly, like watching the traffic on a freeway. And then we didn't want to tell the audience was about between 2,000 and 3,000 people what was going on outside. Otherwise, they'd have been all outside watching the activity.
How funny.
Not listening to the lecture. So we took, a few hundred out at a time and had them watch. But the third time, 2009, was the most activity that I had seen. It was just continuous. Like watching cars, like I said, on a freeway. And it was all being filmed, and nobody was much surprised. They took it as an everyday event. It was in the newspapers.
Kind of like Mexico City in the early 90s. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. Quite analogous. Unfortunately, my computer was down for a few days, but I just recently, this evening, sent you a bunch of stills and files that had not only what we saw from the hotel, but what we saw in a little city which is south on the European coast. The interesting thing about Turkey is that it's surrounded by two oceans, and it's on two continents. Right. So you can go from the European to the Oriental continent quite easily. Well, this was on the European coast where most of these photographs were taken. My computer still won't send the extra large video files, so you'll have to forgive me from that. But
who did you send them to, me or my webmaster?
I sent them to you.
Okay, and that was within the past hour or two?
Yeah, right.
All right.
I was busy sending.
Okay, I'm going to go look for them here. I'm not seeing them yet, but if they were big files...
Yeah, well, when you see them and when the audience...
We've got some really great links under your name in guests right now. some very good analysis, videos and so forth of this object, this machine. There's a big machine up there of some kind.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a crime to call it a UFO. It's not a UFO.
It was an IFO. It was identified as a machine.
IFO.
Yeah,
it's some kind of a flying machine.
Yeah,
and it don't belong to us. It's not the Turkish government, not the American government, because the occupant. This is the icing on the cake. Now let me tell you how this came about. Hakan Agodan, who is the individual over there who owns an organization called Cirrus UFO organization, puts on the conferences, and we decided to go. Once the conference is over, we decided to go down the European coast. Well, there's a residence down there that we were able to rent same years, 2007, 2009, and there's a patio-like area which is out back of the facility, and it, let's say, borderlines the ocean. There's only maybe about 40 or 50 feet between the actual water and where we were. And we set up cameras there and filmed from close to midnight till about 5 in the morning. And of all the nights, we didn't expect to see anything, was the last night in 2009, because the moon was so bright. Yeah, I mean, it even blocked out the stars that were surrounding the room. Now, the camera we were using had a 300 millimeter lens and an electronic doubler, which gave us 600 millimeters of magnification, which was quite a bit. And even on a tripod with the wind blowing, there's still, some slight movement.
What was the range approximately? What's your best guess at this point?
I guess about 20 miles, but we have, I've sent you an exact measurement and triangulation that was done, because the analysis was done by the University of Istanbul, which is a government-owned university, and then it went from there onto a multitude of television shows with skeptics and this person and that person, and they were all blown away. I mean, it was headlines. I even sent you some of the newspapers' headlines, which unfortunately are in Turkish, but you can pretty well get the idea. Where it says "Kumburgis," that means talking about the UFO, this particular object. And so we were there with this specialized camera and a bright full moon. We had surveyed the ocean prior to that each time, looking for reflective light sources such as oil derricks or piers or, even boats that may have been out in the area.
Sure.
We used binoculars. There was nothing. There was just, nothing there that would reflect on anything. Plus, as I said, the last time the moon was so bright, we didn't expect to see anything. Well, so we were panning the moon and just to get our bearings straight, for the camera. And then we noticed that below the moon and slightly to the left was what appeared to be maybe a bright star. It was a bright light. And so we continued to push or zoom, as it's called, on the surface of the moon, and then got slower downward until we were focusing on the bright light. We could see that the bright light, whatever it was nothing but a reflection of the moonlight on some kind of a shiny object. So we continued pushing until we got to max saturation, let's say the closest you could get. And that's when we saw what we saw.
This is, without question in my memory, the most unique and unusual videotape And there's a lot of it, of this object, of an object, of any object. How many times did it appear approximately in the same location, Roger? And how much footage was recorded of this thing?
I don't know the exact amount of footage, but there was a lot of it because it was there for quite some time. And I mentioned one analysis that was done at the University of Istanbul, but then another analysis was done by a very respected video analyst in Chile. And he published an analysis not just on the craft itself, but what the entities looked like that were in the craft and what they were doing at the time we were filming them.
Now, you heard Roger correctly. The video would resolve to the extent that you could make out the movements of what clearly appeared to be humanoid beings with a head and an upper body. This is all in the material that's up there right now, and Roger's sending more, so we're going to get that up for you as well. That's just stunning. I remember seeing it, and at that point in time, when I first saw it, there was no analysis done of it. It was just the raw footage, and the colors and the shifting of the the illuminated parts of the thing were just intriguing. I'll remember that for forever.
Yeah, the craft itself was, remember, backlighted by the brightness of the moon.
Yes.
It wasn't giving off any kind of light whatsoever, but that made the lighting that was coming. There was 3 ports from the visualization that we were seeing through the camera. One was directly in the center, and one was on each side. And there were beings in each one of the ports. Now, some of them were, this is not a Rorschach. You can look at it. They were the typical black-eyed grays.
Yep.
And they were, engaged in some activity. But there were some other entities there that I'd heard described before in my years of research on the subject of abduction. They were kind of a bulldog-nosed, large-nosed face, and you could see they were more heavy-set.
That reminds me of that incredible event that you were on the program describing, of that, what they called a meteor, which overflew the western part of the San Fernando Valley and went down in Santa Susana. Remember the whole story.
Right.
Up in Rocketdyne is where it went down.
Exactly.
And they probably have some kind of a base up there, or did. And you were on the program, I think, a day or two after that happened. Not long. And you and Daryl. But you knew also about, there was an Air Force colonel who went and taught. There's a general. Yeah. Fascinating story. Just a fascinating story of a major event. What have you thought about over the years since that happened, Roger? Whose was that? Ours? Theirs? Are we working together with them?
I think it was a joint project because when we finally went up there, the hillsides were just absolutely charred. And he was able to find out that kind of throwing his weight around, he came back up there with his uniform on. Yeah,
let me tell this real quick. The idea that an enormously bright meteor, sizzling spark, so to speak, zooms across from would be the southeast to the northwest, I guess, and then goes down in the San Fernando Valley in the foothills there at Rocketdyne, which we've talked about with Michael Collins so many times, where they had the nuclear accidents that they never reported. It's seen by, tens of thousands of people or more. A general drives up there and meets a roadblock, smartly dressed with, I guess the uniforms, these guys did not have any kind of an identifying logo on them.
No,
as I remember.
Just fatigue.
Yeah, and the general said, what's going on here? And the guy said, sorry, sir, we can't allow you in. He didn't know he was a general. Said, just generally to the public, sorry, sir, madam, we can't let you in, go away. So the general got angry, and he went home, got his uniform on, went back, and tell us what happened.
Well, he went back up there, and he was stopped. I don't know whether it was by the same individuals or not, but he said, check my rank, buddy. I want to talk to your commanding officer. So I said, just wait here, don't move, don't leave your car. And they went in through a gate and brought another military officer out. And he said, General, he said, I can't tell you exactly what happened here, but we had a space vehicle that was in, had some mechanical problems. It came down and it was repaired and took off again. So that's what he was told. But he went back again. He wasn't satisfied with the story, and they actually let him in and found that the first story was a lie because I don't know whether they were told to let him in or whatever, but he was guided by two non-com military personnel, one on each side of him, and he said there was absolutely nothing in front of him, and he walked to a certain point, and they said, stop, raise your left foot, and put it forward. And as he did that, he could feel his foot on something that was hard and metallic. And it was a set of stairs, and he went actually into this object, which he said when he got in the inside, it was huge.
He could not see it?
Couldn't see it from the outside, only from the inside.
Total stealth covering on the outside. Couldn't see a thing.
Couldn't
and yet
see
he felt the stairs.
But yet he could look out, see everything through. He didn't want to call it a port or a window. He said it was made out of a material that was, that you could see through.
Unreal. And this was the craft that landed. It was still there. It didn't take off.
Yeah, it was still there. They lied to him, and it took off the following day. Mm-hmm. The part that they probably didn't lie about was that it was in trouble. And I remember they had told him that all the fire and brilliance of the object was due to a maneuver they call aerobraking. And that's the same thing that NASA talked about when they sent a probe to Mars, if you remember, aerobraking.
I do. I certainly do. Did he see any?
That was long before that.
Did he see anybody in the ship, Raj, that he remembers? Any?
There was military personnel that was in the ship, but
nobody else.
Nobody else.
All right. Well, I didn't hear that part of the story until just now. Thank you for sharing that. Now, remember, this is a general, folks. All right.
Right. They gave him an injection before he left, and then he called me right after that and said, my memory is fading of what happened, so I better tell it to you now. And,
wow.
His memory was erased.
Live, this is One for the Record. I'm Diana, and today is July 21st, 2013, and here are your news updates for today. I'm going to be attaching the third hour, the Earth Changes, for Dr. DEAGLE's Nutrimedical report, and away we go, so stay tuned. The Watchers watching the world. Magnitude 6.0 earthquake has struck Gansu, China. Colliding neutron stars, source of all the gold in the universe. Massive wildfires still raging near Palm Springs, California. Activity at Tunguhua remains at moderately high levels. Reventador follows Ecuador. The story of honeybees and their importance in sustaining life. Swarm of strong earthquakes hits Cook Strait, New Zealand. Magnitude 6.5 was the strongest so far. Let's see. Alrighty then. let's move on. Oh, my nose itch. Alright, let's see. The Extinction Protocol 2012 and beyond. Powerful 6.5 magnitude earthquake strikes Cook Strait, New Zealand. Martian atmosphere destroyed by sudden catastrophic event like giant impact. And they're talking about Mars. It had a sudden impact from a meteor / or asteroid, and it was a catastrophic event, and it wiped out the atmosphere. Let's see here. It's one theory. Alright. Moving on. The breaking news.com. Aided by rain, firefighters make progress on California mountain fire. Now 68% surrounded. That's coming out of NBC LA, and that was 30 minutes ago. Thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado is moving through eastern North Dakota. Heads up, this is coming out of the breaking weather an hour ago. Okay, what else do we have? Any more weather? Okay, 5.9 magnitude earthquake strikes central China. USGS reports no immediate news of damage or injury. That was 3 hours ago. There's no updates since then. 5 hours ago, more than 100 aftershocks recorded since magnitude 6.5 earthquake in Wellington, New Zealand region. Rain has helped firefighters slow massive mountain fire blaze. Cost to fight so far $20 million. Okay, anything else today? 78-year-old New York man died of heat exposure during last week's heat wave. That's coming out of CBS New York. It's terrible. Photo, flooding in Midtown Phoenix, Arizona with huge storm. Okay, and that was hours and hours ago. That was 8 hours ago. Okay, we'll get rid of that one. E&E News, the Energy News, Fukushima, Japan. Fukushima cancer risk surges. Ongoing saga at nuclear plant dangerously murkier. Over 10 times more workers suffered cancer-inducing radiation doses than TEPCO admitted. Okay, let's go into U.S. Canada, E&E News, the Energy News. Today. Video. Official unable to find bottom of giant Louisiana sinkhole during depth survey. All of 750-foot measuring cord used. Ooh. It's like a bottomless pit. Wow. Louisiana sinkhole now 24 acres. Official issued cease and desist order after gas found approaching explosive level coming from hole in front of homes. Wow, people are still there. You better get out of there. Get out of there. Alrighty then. A few more hours left to the weekend. Have a wonderful week coming up. I'll see you again tomorrow, where the countdown will start all over again. Stay tuned. Got some Dr. DEAGLE for you. Take care, and I'll see you on the flip side. Always be prepared for anything, please. Take care.
Welcome back to the Nutrimedical Report, and we are joined with John Moore and Ann Morrison. I think, John, you have a short segment because you're going to have to run. You have lots of things going on. I think you have a preparedness expo that you're going to.
I am.
Where's the expo, by the way? And, of course, if anybody's listening locally there, they can...
That's Lebanon, Missouri, which is just about 40 miles east of Springfield, Missouri, on Interstate 44.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. You mentioned some shocking news this morning. We have percolating at least two major airborne viral candidates for a superflu plague that will shut down society. And I think the chances are probably over 90% in the next 18 months it's going to happen, or a later version or wave. Most people don't remember that in 1918 there were three waves of the 1918 H1N1 flu. The first wave happened with a large hiatus of about 6 to 7 months, and then the second wave came, and the third came a little quicker. Most people thought when the first wave was over, it was done, and that's not the case. It can combine with recombinants. We expect that Hajj will bring a major millions of people to Saudi Arabia and Mecca and Medina, where the virus MERV-CoV2 is endemic. And we now know that the case fatality rate, if you're growing the virus in your deep lungs on a viral aspirate, is 80% dead. The H7N9 in China, the case fatality rate reported by Chinese scientists now and World Health Organization, major virologists, is 36%. In Shandong and Shanghai regions, this virus, if it comes here, which you're reporting, and I'm not going to steal your thunder, I want you to report, if the virus is here and starts to take off or recombines with H3N2 or some other virus to make it even more efficient, case fatality rate is 18 times the case fatality rate of the 1918 plague, which is 2.5%. This is 36% case fatality, which means if you get it, you have a 36% or greater than 1 in 3 chances of dying, no matter what they do. ECMO machines, heart bypass, intubation, doesn't matter. So it's not just going to get the weak and the elderly and diabetic. It's going to kill young people. It's going to kill people that otherwise have no pre-existing conditions. Just like in 2009, I predicted, and I was right, against all the so-called pseudo-experts out there, that 10 times more young people died that had no pre-existing conditions and didn't have asthma or chronic lung disease or cystic fibrosis than died with any other flu since 1918. So anybody who tries to say it wasn't a problem, wait till you have a problem. If these are problems, it will completely shut down society tighter than a nuclear war.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Bill. It's good to be with you, and I do have a short segment. It's been well known for many, many decades that biological weapons in the form of a flu virus are much more effective at killing millions, if not billions, of people than any form of warfare is, any other form of warfare. And it is a form of warfare, of course. These are created in a laboratory, and I don't know if you're familiar with the book Biohazard by Ken Alabek, and that's an anglicized.
Yes, I do, yeah, that's good, yeah.
That's the one book. If you want to understand how they fabricate these organisms that God never intended to live on this planet, that's the book that will educate you as to how they bring these about and bring them to life. And it's horrendous what they do and how they do it. And the likelihood of this being a natural virus is pretty slim. Point being, it's a biological weapon. Chances are the powers that be have some way to make sure they don't get it, or a way to get cured from it if they do. In the meantime, the rest of us are quite vulnerable, as you said, and people need to be working on their immune systems and getting as healthy as they can. It's not just a matter of looking good in a bathing suit. It's a matter of life and death, literally. Your product line of nutraceuticals is something that people need to be looking at and considering and taking part in to have optimal health for what's coming at us. In addition, we're still apparently anguishing and getting ready to provide weapons and other wars or weapons, the Deepwater port, and there are a lot of ships there that come from various third world countries. I don't know if there are very many coming here from China, but I wouldn't doubt that there's some coming from China.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Amazing.
Okay, guys.
Great. Thanks a lot, John. And give us your latest report. What's happening? I guess I can hear the music, so we're going to close off this segment. We'll be back with Ann Morris in just a moment, and we'll have a lot more to talk about. sources and also some strange things in terms of a high you mentioned on the break, all the way from Africa to California. What's going on? Let's give us the latest kind of capsulization of what's happening in the news.
Well, this is the new average, the new normal. We're at the new normal. Listen, there was a man. He had traveled to southern China in May of this year, although not to where the H7N9 had been reported. And he became severely ill when he went to India and spent some time in the intensive care unit. Now, they don't say why he was in the intensive care unit. But after his release in the hospital, he traveled to the United Arab Emirates, and the UAE is one of those places where you can catch MERS, the Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. And then he boarded a flight for San Francisco. And while that flight was in the air, the man became ill and lost consciousness. So the plane was diverted to Edmonton. And that's what they did in 2003 when SARS was devastating, was killing people, was that the planes, if they thought they had somebody ill on board, they'd divert them into Canada, into Toronto. And I think we must have some kind of agreement with Canada that they'll take the sick, these emerging diseases and try to figure out what they are before they come into the United States. Anyway, they looked at him and they put him in the hospital, and he developed aspiration pneumonia, and that's pneumonia caused by drawing in fluids to the lungs. And one of the infectious disease specialists at the hospital knew the man's travel history, and he ordered a battery of tests. And one of them was a blood test, and it turned out that he had it showed evidence of a past infection with an H7 flu, but they couldn't diagnose the N part of it, so they didn't know it was N9 or not. Well, so they had to send it to the CDC because the CDC has a different type of test, and so they tested it there, and it's called microneutralization, and I guess they'll be spreading that test around to the different laboratories. But in any case, they ruled out that it was H7N9, and the fellow, he didn't exhibit any flu symptoms, and they didn't say anything about MERS because he had been to the UAE, and you'd think that they would have tested him for MERS, and they let him go, and so now he's probably in San Francisco or New Orleans or someplace like that.
Exactly, yeah. I want to mention a story that I got from the director, Dr. Barrick, at the CR Wellness Center. I was down working out, getting to see my chiropractor this morning, working out with Jerry. And he mentioned this reporter that was a ticked-off FBI photographer who saw the reports and the pictures in Rolling Stone, which ordinarily had some pretty good journalism, but Rolling Stone's gone over the edge. They put a picture that made him look like some kind of like a cherubic kid, almost a celebrity. This guy, Sundarev, the kid that blew up, along with these Pritzker bombs and his brother, all these people in the Boston Marathon. Well, the fact is that this photographer actually put up the real pictures showing this kid crawling out with one of these, laser lights literally pointed at his forehead. We have some interesting issues that are going on. You mentioned about the tectonic plate floor and what's happening there. Anything about Earth changes otherwise, space weather? Because people are noticing very high UV indexes. They're getting sunburns really easy out there. The weather patterns, you mentioned a high region all the way from Africa to Southern California. And there's also a tectonic plate you mentioned that's brand new, a new baby tectonic plate in the Indonesian Ocean. What the heck is going on?
Well, we've got mantle movement. We've got magma movement under the mantle. And the other thing that we have another small tectonic plate forming off of Portugal. And it's like the Juan de Fuca plate off the northwest United States. So there's going to be a subduction zone between the edge of the Eurasian plate, which is the Atlantic Ridge, and the coast of Portugal, Iberia. So it's going to be pushing the landmass up in Spain, and it'll be as it subducts under Spain and Portugal. then it's going to actually move Europe closer to the United States. I wanted to get back to the H7N9 virus because they have some studies out now. They've been studying ferrets and mice, and they found that this H7N9, and this is true of most avian flus, it can pass through the eyes to infect the respiratory tract. And I've been promoting the use of goggles and medical masks if you're going to be around anybody who you think might have this. And you want to avoid touching the eyes, nose, or mouth to help prevent the spread of germs. Now, if your school nurse sends home a note that says we've got conjunctivitis, or we've got pink eye, or we've got red eye, or something to do with the eyes in the school, you may want to keep your kids home, because that generally could be an indication that they've got some kind of avian flu. It might not be the H7N9, but they've got some kind of avian flu going around in the school system. And of course the CDC supports the recommendation for healthcare providers to wear eye protection when caring for patients. Now,
exactly, and I think people should start doing that now. By the way, I got some interesting medical news. They've, in the laboratory, been able to silence the extra chromosome in Down syndrome. And I proposed to Dr. Steenblock with the idea of taking people's bone marrow that have Down syndrome, like my daughter, removing the 21st chromosome, multiplying the stem cells billions of times, then reinfusing them to make non-Downs, so you basically turn them into what's called a Down's mosaic, so over time, their body tissues as they regenerate will all be non-Downs.
Yeah, I understand that.
And there's a theory that I've developed called chromosomal protofaction, where you find people who've got abnormal genes and abnormal mitochondria, and after they're born, you basically protofactor, you upgrade their mitochondria to ones that are healthy in their stem cells, and find the defective chromosomes, and you can slice them out under, we call nano lasers, and rebuild their chromosome structure with healthy genes. Just do a gene transplant, just like if you think of it as like a set of code or software, if you want to call it, for your cells. You don't have to transplant the entire gene or just a chunk of it, or a few genes. And you can literally correct genetic disorders after birth. And I think we're on that verge of that. Over the next 10, 20 years, this will be pretty standard to do genetic analysis and then give you nutraceuticals right now, which we can through Genova Labs and Metametrics. We can do those tests now to find out what caused you to get hypertension or diabetes or other problems. We can give you nutraceuticals. I don't recommend drugs, targeted based on the genetic testing, and then we'll eventually be able to actually upgrade and change the genes.
Yeah. Well, that would be wonderful.
It's coming. What's coming is that, and like, so when we look at the genes for obesity, for example, most people, they think they're like together. Obesity is a shutdown of the peptides in your gut that regulate your brown fat and insulin resistance, because your gut peptides influence the fat tissues in your body and your brown fat and your white fat around your internal organs and your abdomen, the omentum, and the fat actually regulates your muscle resistance. So that's how important it is.
Well, that would be excellent. They're doing all sorts of things, but that is, they promised that when they first got into this DNA testing. And,
well, they're trying to reverse it. The drug companies actually tried to get the genetic stuff going so that they could use it as a way of trying to sell a drug for a genetic defect. And so they actually were trying to see if they can patent human DNA, which has now been struck down in the labs. It means eventually you'll be able to get the proper gene from a gene bank and then do a gene insertion in a stem cell and then prove the stem cells have got those genetic correct polymorphisms, and just fix your own genetic thing and then upgrade your stem cells and reinfuse them.
I think that would be wonderful.
Interesting. Now, in world news, the Israelis and Palestinians have reached an agreement with shuttle diplomacy back and forth by Secretary of State Kerry to start talks again. And after the fall of Morsi, I think we're really close now to the peace treaty.